Hello and welcome to Stage to Sofa. Today I am joined by a fabulous mezzo-soprano who has just made her LA opera debut in a world premiere of Eurydice. She is also a fantastically talented prize winner of many competitions all around the world. It is the incredibly talented Raehann Bryce-Davis. Thank you for joining me, Raehann.
I'm so excited to be here and to share some fun experiences and connect with you all the way across the pond.
Oh, it's so exciting, and I'm so glad we have this platform that we can do this on. It's amazing. So
Absolutely.
how are you coping? You've had such a crazy year, and then all of a sudden this hits. What are you doing to use this time, and how are you finding this huge transition?
Well, I have to say careers have a trajectory, and mine was just getting very exciting. This was kind of the most exciting season that I've had. The show, I was in LA, and I was just going to have my last performance. And a couple days before we went on, it was just, announced that everything was canceled, like I'm sure a lot of you have experienced. And so we went from 1000% being involved with colleagues and orchestra and in the middle of this exciting performance, and then going to radio silence. That's it's kind of a lot. I hopped on a plane and headed straight to Texas, where my family is, and have been kind of living the life of a desperate housewife somehow. From like, I'm doing that to like, I guess you gotta wash some dishes. So, that's always part of it, but still, it's quite a jolt. It's quite an emotional jolt.
I can imagine, as you said, you'd had such an exciting career, so that was just getting on its feet, and it's really exciting. And for this all to now stop, it must be a huge jolt for you. How are you coping vocally? Have you been singing much, or are you taking a little break from that?
Well, the first at least 3 weeks, I was just kind of in shock. I get to be home with my family, which is nice, which means I have lots to do to stay busy. There are 5 people in the house, 5 dogs, so there's always some cooking, some cleaning, some dogs to walk. There's always something to do, so boredom is never a problem. But I kind of just did that. I went through the motions, and did what needed to be done. Baked the brownies, baked the muffins, did the thing. Then I started to just feel very heavy unrest. And I realized it's because I wasn't singing at all. And when all of your passion and energy has been going towards the art of music making and art making and making something meaningful, and then all of a sudden you're just, clean. The soul is not happy. So then I started just in the middle of the day singing just songs that I loved. I couldn't touch opera. My body was too exhausted to touch opera. So I would just sing some of my favorite German lieder. Some Ständchen, some Widmung, all the cliches, but the ones that just made my heart happy. And I would just take 30 minutes a day and just sing some of those. And that at least got me less desperate feeling. And then I recorded some of them for social media, just because it's hard to not share. Usually we experience richness and then we share it. And then now it's weird because you just, experience it in your dark room by yourself. But so I shared a couple of those. Then I got to do some fun recitals. There was this platform launch called Playground, and they were like, hey, we're a bunch of hip and cool young adults. and we want to hear some classical music. So I was like, heck yeah, let's do it. So so I got to do a recital for them, and then LA Opera reached out, and they were like, they're doing this amazing like music. Oh, I wish I remembered their catchphrase. LAO at home, where it's a bunch of singers just sing from their living rooms. And I got to do one of those, and I was very ambitious, and I planned a very extensive program of all Black composers and female composers. Learned lots of music for that, so that kept me very busy. You can hear my darling Cora in the background.
She's fabulous. She's a singer. It's great. We love it. That's amazing that you put so much heart and energy into this project that you're now doing, and the LA Opera as well. That's incredible. And I'm just interested, what point did you fall in love with classical music and opera music?
Well, it was very much a transition. I was always in classical music. My mom is a singer, and she always had us in piano lessons or violin lessons. And I played clarinet, and I was in choir. So classical music was always a part of my life, but opera was a slower transition. When I was in high school, she went back to school to do a second degree. And so I just had, for the summers, she would take me with her to school, and she would just leave me in the fine arts library, where I would sit for hours and just watch musicals all day. And so that kind of progressed. West Side Story was my favorite. And then so the dreaded Phantom of the Opera, don't judge me. And then I started transitioning into more kind of crossover music. There was this band called Amici Forever, which sang all of these like opera hits, but kind of with a little beat on the backside. So I really loved them. And then one day I was listening to their Mon cœur sous ta voix that the mezzo sings, and I was downloading on LimeWire, like you did in the the 90s and the 2000s.
Oh yeah.
And I saw that somebody else sang that song. So I was like, oh, who's this person? I thought it was just Amici's song. And it was Olga Borodina. And so then I listened to Olga sing it, and I was like, this is way better. Like, why is this so much better? Like, I didn't know what made it better. It just sounded a billion times better. And so then I started to listen to Olga and to all of her things. And I was like, whoa, this opera thing's legit. Like, this is epic. This is probably like my junior, senior year in high school. So then it was time to go to college, and I decided to study business. Because I didn't want to be a starving artist. That wasn't even in the picture of being a performer. I was always singing. I arranged music for our group in high school, but singing was never a potential for a career, But my teacher in fast forward, my mom, who was also studying music, was like, Raehann, you love singing so much. Why don't you just go take some voice lessons? And so I was like, okay, that doesn't hurt. Let me go take some lessons. So I did. And after our first lesson, the teacher was like, what are you studying again? I was like, yeah, I'm a business major, like you do. She's like, nah, baby, you need to transfer. You need to come here. You need to study music. And I was like, that's funny. I'm going to be a super rich business mogul. I don't have time for this starving artist music stuff. Like, nah. And so we kind of kept going throughout the year. And I really loved the lessons. Every week I was just looking forward to those. And I never really made a call to myself, but all of a sudden it was time to register for the next semester. And I just didn't register for my business classes. I just didn't register. And then the deadline passed and I was like, well, I guess I decided to be a music major.
Oh my God, that's so amazing. That is an incredible story. I love that. How have you found, because you obviously then went on to study it absolutely diligently and you're now in this fabulous position. How did you find that transition from education into the international opera world? How did you maneuver that change?
Well, I came from a very small undergrad. I went to UT Arlington, which is known very worldwide for engineering, not for music. And so I noticed that a lot of my friends who had incredible voices, to this day, some of the most incredible voices I've ever heard, they just weren't having the careers that I wanted. They weren't making the choice that I wanted to make. And so I just started doing a lot of Googling, and I was like, what are other people doing? Like, this is, this whole, I was in the middle of this small pond and everybody was kind of doing some of the same things. And I was like, okay, but there has to be a bigger world outside of this pond. And like, what are those people doing? So then I started trying to find those people. And I ran into a summer program that was done by Manhattan School of Music. And I was like, yeah, let me go there. I'm going to go there. And I had a wonderful teacher that encouraged me, because I had two opportunities that summer. I could have gone to Canada to study privately with a teacher, or I could have gone to MSM and done that program. And she was like, Nabu, you need to go, you get out of here, get out of Texas, go to the Northeast. Like, everything's happening in the Northeast. So I was like, okay, everything's happening there. I'm going to go there. So I did that. I went and did that program. And then all of a sudden, the world is so much bigger. You hear amazing singers from all over the world. You're like, oh, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to be. And some incredible teachers. You get some of the best in the world at Manhattan School. And so it was an easy transit from there to go to grad school. And then from there, I had wonderful teachers who recommended me. When I did my first audition for a young artist program, my teacher had written a recommendation letter. She was friends with somebody at Florida Grand Opera. And so when he heard me for the audition, I had a recommendation letter on his desk that was saying like, hey, listen to this girl. She's my girl. Take her seriously. And I've been so grateful, because it's those people that enable you to make that transition, from singer into the real world, because somebody has to be able to vouch for you. And that was Miriam Charney for me, who's an expert in contemporary music. So she's been very pivotal in my life, and I was very grateful for her. That's how I made that first jump into young artist life.
That's amazing. And I think you're dead right. You have to have that person behind you vouching for you. And also you have to vouch for yourself. It's about creating those connections, I think, and not being scared of creating them, as you very beautifully put. So you're at a really exciting point, as we've said. And now I'm wondering what the next 5 years hold for you. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Where would you like to be? On what stage?
Well, I've always been very diligent to have a 5-year plan. I'm now on I graduated 7 years ago, but probably in where the 5-year plan that I had to do, I'm on year like 4. But I'm very excited. It's just kind of started turning the corner. I did the young artist life, which is small roles in bigger houses. Then I moved to singing small roles, or medium roles in bigger houses. And I've just gotten to the point in my career that I'm singing big roles in wonderful big houses. And so basically, I just want to do more of that. I want to move into my exciting leading ladies. I sang, the first lead that I got to do was Leonora in La Favorite, which is a dream. O Mio Fernando the Mezzo, one of our national anthems. So I was very excited to get to do get to do one of those in Palermo at Teatro Massimo. And then I've gotten to do Eboli, The Other Dream, at Opera of Vlaanderen. That's another company that's been really responsible for my transition from young artist to leading lady, because I came through their program in Antwerp, Belgium, and they've really vouched for me. And that was a huge risk that they took on me to give me Eboli, you know, as somebody who's never sung the role and not really had a record, but they believed in me. And so I've been really fortunate to have that experience. Yeah, and so I just want to do more of that. I want my first Amneris. I have my first Brangena in Tristan and Isolde coming up. Preziosilla, all the dream mezzo ladies, Italian and French and all the things. I want to sing those. I want to rule the world.
You know? I love it, and I have no doubt you will, to be honest. So it's all good. Now, I'm wondering, what has been the biggest challenge that you faced in this career? Have you had any recent times where you've suddenly been put on the spot and you've had to cope?
That's like always. I think I've always been a very big salesperson of myself, whether I believed in myself or not. You know, I had somewhere that I wanted to go, and the biggest obstacle is convincing people that you deserve to be there, you know? And so I've tried to make a lot of bold decisions, and yeah, but that's the real obstacle, is just convincing people that you deserve to be there. And a lot of times it's convincing yourself that you deserve to be there. But kind of my life motto is fake it till you make it. You know?
I think that's great. I do. I think it's a great motto to have. Now, I heard a slight rumour that Alice Coope had a family emergency, I believe, and so wasn't able to take on the leading lady role. Can you explain that story for us and how you came into the centre of that story?
Well, I was in the middle of I think it was Tech Week for Eurydice, the world premiere of Eurydice at LA Opera, and the company manager came up to me in the middle of the room run and was like, "Hey, do you know Roberto Devereaux?" And I was like, kind of heard the title before. I've never seen it. I don't know much about it, but can you sing this? And so she handed me a score. And back in the back of my head, when I was in school, Mignon Dunn had told me, this is something you need to sing. So I knew it was kind of in my wheelbarrow. And so I immediately said, I don't need to look at it. Yes, I can sing it. And so things kind of started rolling. The next week, I had 3 days basically to learn the score. And then the next week, all of a sudden, you're in a room with like Ramon Vargas and Yoon Sung Kim, who is the conductor, the music director now of San Francisco Opera. You know, it was just like, okay. In Eurydice, I had a great role, but you know, I was kind of side fun. You know, whereas this is now she's the ingenue, but she has the principal. She has a beautiful aria, and she has a duet with Ramon Vargas, and you know, it was the big deals. All of us like gosh awful fast.
Yeah, I can imagine. How did you cope with that mentally? Because you've got 3 days to learn a very difficult score. What is your plan? You must have a plan. How did it go and how did you do it?
You know, oddly enough, I'm a procrastinator. So I actually learn a lot of my music slightly last minute. That is not advice. That is not advisable. You should not do that. And I myself have had to stop doing that because the roles have gotten bigger. And you can't do that anymore. But when I was in school, a lot of young composers would come and give me music and be like, hey, can you do this like in 2 days? And it's crazy hard music. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I always just accept things and assume that I just have to make it happen. When you have to make something happen, you make it happen. But I'm very fortunate that I'm a rather quick learner. And the plan is just you start at the top and you go to the end and you do it on repeat all day. That's not a strategy. It's just you have to have the mental fortitude to sit at the piano for 14 hours that day. Or if you're not sitting at the piano, then you have to be lying in bed and listening to all the great sing the thing. And then you have to be washing dishes and thinking about the text, and then what does that mean? And then who is she? You just literally, all the work that you would normally put into it over 2 months is just now happening, rather in a short period. I mean, not all of that was done in the 3 days. We started with musical rehearsals and then staging, so you have more time than that. Yeah, that's kind of how it happened. And eventually we got her done and we got on stage, and I was really fortunate also because it's a very hard role vocally. But for me, it already sits in my home place, which is a high mezzo that has some fun little dramatic moments, but it just sits high, and it's like I don't have to work a lot there. Whereas for most mezzos that are lyric or lower mezzos, that's a tough sing. But I was fortunate that I didn't really have to work it out so much technically because it was already in my home base. There are two pieces that are like that for me. The first time I sang a Verdi Requiem, I sat at the piano and I was like, oh, this is perfect. And you so rarely get pieces like that, but every once in a while you do, and you're like, yeah, I don't have to futz with it. Like Verdi thought of my voice and then wrote it down to make me happy. That's how it feels.
I know exactly what you mean. It's like slipping into a nice pair of slippers. I fully get that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
so Raehann, if you could go back to one moment in your life, what would it be and why?
I think one of the most meaningful moments that I've ever gotten to be a part of was my Carnegie debut, which was in this incredible world premiere called Sanctuary Road. And the music is by Paul Moravec and the text is by Mark Campbell. And it's the story of William Still, who was a conductor on the Underground Railroad. And so it's an oratorio, and one of the characters that I got to sing is her name is Ellen Craft, and she was a light-skinned woman who was a slave, and she was in love with her husband, and they decided to escape, and they did this incredibly daring escape from the South. She pretended to be an old white man, and they like wrapped up her arm in a cast, and she went on the train, and they pretended that her love was her slave and he was in a different car. And so there's this aria called Same Train. And so the moment when I was singing it at Carnegie will always be very close to my heart. Just being able to share a woman's fears and passions and loves and hopes with, all the people in the space. There's something so sacred about making music. And when you can feel the hearts of the audience kind of joining with your heart and the spirit of this character kind of flowing through you. I mean, I've had so many opportunities to have these beautiful moments, but that was a really special one. Um, and I'm very happy. Actually, a couple months ago, it was released on Naxos, this Sanctuary Road. So, um, yeah, that's definitely first time in Carnegie, first time in that sacred space where you know all these greats and giants have walked there before you, and getting to sing really beautiful music. That that was a high.
Wow, that sounds incredible, and I am absolutely going to listen to that. I wish I'd been in the audience. It's such a beautiful
Oh,
feeling when you know that you are connecting, like you said, to all of the audience's hearts. And I personally find that quite a spiritual experience. It's not just obviously standing up on stage. I feel like it's more than that, and I'm just wondering what you feel.
I mean, I always just kind of feel like a vessel when it's good, when it's real, when you get to stop thinking about, you know, the and it's something you've just sung a billion times, and you get to just like the spirit just flows through you and it kind of goes to the audience, and then you feel theirs coming back at you. It's absolutely a very spiritual experience. Yeah. And it's what makes this time so devastating, you
It
know?
is. It's hard. It's really hard. And I
It,
think it's finding a way to create that level of connection through digital media, even though it's, you know, not ideal. I'm hoping at some point there will be a way that we can do that.
yeah, I really hope so. I mean, the positive is that we're having to find different ways to connect. Um, there was an article that was saying that the positive of this is that it kind of takes away the snootiness of opera, because the big stars are suffering just as much as the struggling up and coming singers. And you see them in their homes, and you know, sometimes you kind of you have an image of what these stars are, and then you see them in their homes and they're just regular people like everybody else, with mic issues like everybody else. You know, we're
So true.
struggling, they're struggling. Everybody's like they're on their Zoom like, wait, how does this work? You
It's so
know,
true. It really is. It's so true. And it is one of the positive things I think that has definitely come out of this whole situation. Long
right.
may it continue in terms of getting rid of that snootiness at 100%.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
Raehann, I've come to my final question. What piece of advice would you give to an 18-year-old Raehann?
Practice piano. Oh man, practice piano, work on your languages, and live a fun life. Um, you know, so much effort is put on being correct. I know when I graduated, um, we had all these rules of what you should wear, what colors you need to wear, what silhouette you need to wear, what pattern you need to wear, what style of shoes you need to wear, and all of that, kind of like a singer uniform. Um, and there is absolutely positive in that. But right now, as an artist, you have to know who you are. And I think I took a bit longer to get to that because I was trying so hard to follow the rules and be correct. And if you are correct and right all the time, that's not interesting, you know? And so and if you've spent all your time doing that, you don't have anything personal to bring to your arias, you know? People have been singing this music for the last, 400 years. You have to bring something to it that nobody has before. People can go home and listen to their very perfect recordings. You being perfect doesn't do anything for anyone. You have to bring your own experiences, your own heart, your own personal, intimate connection to this music. And then that makes you worth listening to, you know? And so I think those are my three, fall in love, have a breakup, have a, have, live life, because the characters are about people who are living life. And if you have not lived a life, how can you bring something real to that character? I feel like every single one of my breakups has been very great for my characters because we had so many in opera. And I'm like, oh, this is the moment when I won't get too specific, but every single one of my life experiences have meant something to my characters. So those are my three: practice piano, learn languages, and live life.
I love that. That is a fantastic end to a beautiful interview. Thank you so much, Raehann. You're a joy to speak with and so full of life, and I love it. Thank you for joining me on Stage to Sofa.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. You can all follow me on Instagram at RayRayBD.